women continue to lag behind men in sports across the world, but most significantly in a country like ours, which is South Africa.
Now, in an effort to bridge the gap, the country's most successful rugby union, the Bulls, award professional contracts, as Kate said earlier, to 35 female players in February this year.
Now, to speak more about this venture and all the other things that concern women, especially in rugby, we are joined via Zoom by Thando Manana, the Bulls Special Projects and High Performance Women's Rugby Manager. Thando Manana is via Zoom there. Hey, Brati.
Good evening to your viewers. Chibos, hi, Kate.
Hey,
hi, man. Before we talk about the contracts that Thabiso mentioned in that earlier on, but maybe let's just bring in our viewers into what exactly were you brought in by the Bulls to do?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question. I think at the time of joining the Bulls last year in July, there was a lot of restructuring happening, and the company just needed to take a different route. Obviously, with the view of the URC having to take two South African teams to play in the URC, so the focus was to start something now and to have a better preparation when that happens. And when you have the Women's League, I mean, obviously you have now the URC for the men, which is ongoing and quite a successful one, which the Stormers are defending. So I was tasked then to start with a pathway, in terms of high performance, how best we can obviously have that from a Bull perspective. And I mean, obviously it needed also the green light from the Bulls board members, which they finally did once they were happy with what I put in place in terms of organograms, in terms of how we sort of start planning for that. And the project is a 5-year project and above. And I think from my side, Kate, is just to make sure that I develop, a program that other unions can take with or sort of use as a template. I mean, I'm a South African, and I think we're all in this together. We're all happy that we ranked 12th in the world, but we're not entirely happy that we're outside of the top 10, and that's for obvious reasons. So we're focusing on just having and running a pure high performance for women, and we're doing that. And the program has just been awesome. New learnings, new experiences. And also, you've got to understand that you've got to also bring in safeguarding policy within the women's space. I mean, we know what is currently happening with women's sports. So for me, it's been quite a mouthful and a handful, but I've been taking it day by day. And a couple of weeks or 2 months ago, we announced our two coaches, Coach Hayden and Coach Mandisa. And that for me was also very important, that I bring in a woman, coach within the setup immediately. Obviously, my goal is to have a head coach being a woman and with the support staff fully 100%. So that's all work in progress. We have a 75% woman in our team management, which is good. And for me, the aim is within 2 years that I have more or less 100%, women running the women's division. So I think that's why I was brought in, obviously with the expertise of me having previously run a provincial union, understanding from youth rugby into your provincial setups, as well as also just identifying your YTCs as well as your EPDs, and also just club rugby, where I was very much heavily involved in the Eastern Cape.
What are some of the challenges that you faced, especially in setting this up, which you wanted to be a model for other unions?
It's always difficult to convince people to come to Pretoria. People will always tell you that money is always going to buy you players. I don't think money buys you players in terms of the women's sport. I think, player confidence is what's important, honesty. And I've been very honest to the players that I've recruited. I've been very honest to the players that, are from the Bulls province in terms of this is what we want from them. This is what, I'm willing to go to lengths and breadths, if I can put it in that sense. And I think also, for me, is to develop so many documents that make them comfortable, that know that I'm as the head of high performance, I've got their interests at heart. I mean, if you look, I've just developed a document that talks of, if one of our women is to become a mother within the setup, I mean, I'm able to make sure that she plays the game, continues to play the game, but I look after the the child caregiver as well, and the child travels with the team. Those are new things. It's never been explored, and for me it's important that I do explore such avenues. But also what's important is they've got full-on medics, they've got full-on conditioning at any time that they may require. So we look at a lot of things. We look at weight, we look at what they eat, and we supply them with the best high performance environment that we can in Pretoria, where they're based in one venue. I mean, you've heard from one of your guests, your earlier guests, President Cecilia, where she talks that some of the South African netball members are in Stellenbosch. And that's the only way you do and look at high performance. You have the athlete as close as possible to your time schedule, to your workplace, and they can give you the optimum performance because they've got all the tools in front of them. So those are some of the challenges. For me, was to find a environment, and we've received that environment, and we've gone through partnerships with HPC, and it's never easy, but I think the manner in which we were welcomed after they'd had what we really need to take this thing forward was they were very much welcoming, and everything of us happens at the HPC, although we'll be playing at Loftus, but most of our times we spend in an HP environment, which for me is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, Thando, I mean, we're running out of time, but maybe you've touched on something important there, the importance of looking at the back room, so to speak, inverted commas, of what, parents or mothers or women in sports go through. And this is a conversation that I think, Kate, resonates throughout the sporting world. First and foremost, they're mothers, they're caregivers. And then because there's no professional leagues in South Africa, they do sports as a part-time job. How difficult was it for you, first and foremost, to convince sponsors to come on board to fund this? Because the other question would be the funding model. Are they getting paid as the same as the male sporting players? How has corporate South Africa, if any, have come through and said, look, this is a good idea, let's partner with you?
Look, I think what's important, guys, is, I mean, I spoke earlier, the importance of the Bulls board. I mean, they were quite instrumental. One, we couldn't sign without getting the green light from them. Once I got that, then I was able to start doing that. But two, most importantly, I think, Tabiso, on the issue that you speak about, corporate South Africa is still lagging behind, is still scratching their head in terms of should they, shouldn't they. I mean, for us, we're quite open about it in the sense that we need their support. And I think, it's horses for courses at this stage that, they can line up and really come into their full and really experience what women's sport is going to be in the next couple of years. Already, in other countries, it's the pinnacle of any investor wanting to come on board, and they just want to be part of the women's setup because that's fresh, it's something new, they got new ideas they can play around. But what we've done, and I have to say this before we run out of time, is that the Bulls have ticked all the boxes in terms of that the women will travel the same as our men. They will use the same facility as our male counterparts, as their male counterparts. They'll stay in the same, so they'll have the same experience that our senior teams have when traveling, when staying, in terms of the medical support and what they get from the Bulls. And also, you've spoken about it, that the imbalances of remuneration still is going to be a bit of a problem, and we've got to find means and ways, and hopefully, Sports Minister Zizi Kodwa and other leaders within the fraternity of sports can come up with something that we can also sort of champion, like the Indian cricketer, the women and the men, they get the same amount of match fees. So, we've got to do studies, we've got to come up with partnerships and see how long it took for them to take that decisions. Remember, people are afraid to take decisions, but what they have to understand is, and that we're quite aware of, is that there's a lot of things that happen behind the scene. Your commercial managers, they work left, right, and center to get sponsors on board. We convince them, but it's also what we put also on the field. So we're quite determined to bring results. We're quite determined to make sure that the existing sponsors that we do have have a long-term partnership, and they've done so, and we're quite happy, with minimum 3 years when they come on board, 3-year partnerships. So it's not only a 1 year. For us, we see it as a 5 and above, and our sponsors currently see it as a 3 years and sort of with renegotiation. I'm quite happy with that.
Thando, I'm sorry.
Of how we're doing.
Sorry, I'm Chief, but Kate has got one more question because we're really out of time.
We're really out of time. But this week, Edgar Marutile, Bulls demoted him back to the juniors. Jake White defended the decision, saying it's not only what's best for Edgar, but it's also what's best for the union. That opened up a conversation about the lack of trust of black coaches. Can you please add your thoughts?
It's a very difficult thing to say in a minute, Kate, on what. I was never part of those conversations. I think I run a separate division. I mean, you mentioned Jake. Jake is the high performance director of rugby at the Bulls for men, and mine is simply to look at my department, and I'm doing that. I haven't had conversation with any of the team management or senior management on what led to anything at this stage, because as I said, I'm based at the HPC, and most of the time you won't see me because I've got a competition that starts in May, and obviously I think there'll be more answers to what happened, but unfortunately I don't have any at this stage, and I've not seen Jake, and I've not seen also Edgar to hear what transpired with any of those, and our CEO was away for the last 2 weeks.
All right. Thank you, Thando. We appreciate your answer. And of course, all the best with the competition coming up with the women's rugby. We're looking forward to seeing and hosting the Daisies maybe on the show one day.
Thank you very much. We look forward to having partnerships and you guys supporting us fully. Thank you very much. Good night.
Definitely. Just a quick one. That P on your cap, does it mean pa?
Bye, Thando.
Thando Manana, the former Springbok player himself, as you heard now, is out at the Bulls. Interesting conversation. I think, Kate, on particular with that one, the topic on women in sport, I think it's something that I think we, and particularly at the SABC News, we need to push for more, because I know that there was talk, I think a couple of weeks ago, last year, that Banyana will start getting the same remuneration as the men. We have not seen the actual paper on it, but there was talk about that, and as Thando was saying, good thing for the female rugby players as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a long conversation that we can have. We don't have all night, unfortunately. But we do need to think about commercially where the men's games is versus the women. I think that's where the grey line is, because as much as the Bulls are giving them the same contract in terms of where they train, same medical aid and all of that, they are on par. However, commercially, they're not on the same level.
Me,
and I think that's where the discrepancies will come.
And also, when the league kicks in, it'll be interesting again to see, because you know how the women Springboks, they struggle a bit in national competitions as compared to the likes of the English and the French, who have got professional leagues. So I think all the news we're hearing today, good stuff indeed.
Yeah, indeed.